Hello everyone, Simon here from the Wells of Wall Street. Enjin ENJ on the chart, and we'll also look at Efinity as well, EFI. So of course the market is in a drop at the moment. What does this mean for me? For me, it means get my USDT ready and start buying some absolute bargains. So ENJ is one I've been holding for some time. We're going to rattle through loads of videos, so I need to just go straight into this if you don't mind, but we will have more project videos, of course, individually, as we always do in the near future. But this is critical moments for me personally. I was holding Enjin quite some time ago, buying it in very nice price points, but for me, guys, right now is I was always looking at, like, we saw the projection of Enjin back here hitting really high points in November, and I was thinking like, wow, okay, this might keep pushing itself upwards and upwards, maybe build some momentum towards that, like maybe $10 mark or whatever. But there it went to, it's come back down. It's slowly been moving on the downward trend since then. We'll go into a bit more detail on that in a second. But why am I interested right now? I think we're hitting a really critical confirmation area of support or not support in that sense. So could we see some resistance here? Why am I thinking this? Well, we got these areas here back in December to look at, but more importantly, back here as well. Not necessarily these kind of touch points up here at the back end, looking back in May. This is really interesting because we obviously had the tail up, we had rejection here and a pullback down. Then we had the take up in November, especially around the metaverse conversations. And don't get me wrong, this isn't all of the data here, but this is just what we got from Kraken at the moment. I do apologize, I'll bring up another chart eventually at some point. But for me, this is really interesting because we've already had a couple of areas of rejection coming upwards, but we've also had a lot of rejection already coming back down as well. So we're now at our second stage of this. The momentum of the market in general has been in a bear mode anyway. So what have we got to look at? For me personally, I wanted to add some Enjin to my portfolio. I've got quite a bit already, but I wanted to look at some other areas on the drop downs for the future, whether that be for the upcoming hopeful bull run this year, or indeed the future in general, because I believe in the Enjin as a project. It's phenomenal. We've done loads of videos on it. I think we've got an intro one as well. We can leave that at the end of this one. But looking across that board is really interesting because if we break this down, if we go below that, the next sort of barrier points potentially could be around these sort of just under $2 marks, and possibly, just possibly, maybe even next mark is around 170. So I'm very interested in these areas of buy points, and I'm going to draw them in as well to sort of emphasize what I'm talking about here. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle. So the top of the rectangle is one of my purchase areas, and the one below is another. So I have indeed purchased some ENJ just now, literally 20 minutes ago, from Qcoin, not Qcoin, Binance, at this area. We'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second, but I am particularly, as I mentioned, quite interested in some lower regions, particularly around here at 196, and possibly, as I mentioned, around this 170 mark here as well. So I'm just going to put that there, 177. So let's see how that plays out. Enjin is very phenomenal as a project. I think there's a lot of investment behind it anyway. So yeah, it's going to take a bit more effort for the Bears to win this one, in my opinion. But I'm just basically very happy with the purchase I made because of the confirmation of this area. Hitting it again, having the rejection thus far today. We might see a bit more fluctuation around this mark, maybe a dip down and a bit above that over the few days coming. So that's why I'm playing interestingly around this area for my next move. I've made the one here. Can we get one maybe just around that sort of $2 mark or just under it, in my opinion, maybe that 198, 197 mark. We'll see if that plays out. But that's where my positions are going in with Enjin at the moment. A few other reasons behind that. Of course, the volumes are kicking downwards still slightly. We've had this anticipation of over purchasing power on the histogram. That is now reverted into a bit of a negativity aspect. the bear momentum kicked in with the switch over the MACD here on the 5th of January. So it's only just begun. And that's not to say that we're going to go completely flopping downwards, but we do need to keep an eye on that. I'm hoping for a narrow gap and we stabilize around this area and push up. But selfishly, in some aspects, I'm kind of hoping that we pull down a bit more, because I do love this project. I would very much like to make savings here and there, especially 20 to 50 cents worth. I think it's really, really beneficial in the long run. But a couple of things to point out here. Of course, we had low regions of RSI around here. We had a bit of an influx like we did with many markets out there and assets. Maybe falsified to an extent because of the the reduction here. People then buying in because of the drops. And now we're seeing a similar pattern. So that's why I called it like a false move, if you like. So the RSIs right now, very clear to me. I always say that particularly on a 14-day, 40 mark on an RSI is really important to me, particularly on a 28-day as well. So we're edging towards that right now. But this is a quite stable area. In my opinion, it reduces the risk of it coming down significantly further. Not to say that it won't, or it will come down a bit further, but it's significantly reducing my risk from just general personal experience that I've had over the last couple of years from investing. But for me as well, the fact that this is very nicely stabilized, but still could come down lower because of the momentum of the indicators, particularly the MACD as well, and that wave kicking in from selling off. So if RSI of 28-day gets down to maybe that 40 mark, that's where I think we could see potentially possible $2 markers, and maybe slight dips below. So at the moment, performance here on the right hand side, as you can see, that way, right in the corner, 15% down on the week, 11% down on the month. That's not too bad. 43% up on the month, in 3 months still, which actually is quite interesting, because majority of projects right now are negative movements on that. So clearly, you've got to remember in that vicinity is the metaverse conversation that we had in November. It'd be interesting to see as we edge towards the end of January if that diminishes further, okay, because we're then edging out of that 3-month gap. Because I think we saw the November information around mid-November, so we're approaching that actually probably next week. So it'd be really interesting to see from next week onwards how that 3-month indicator on the right hand side moves about, potentially into a dropped region. Again, similar aspect on 6 months, but that's why we're seeing on the monthly. This is where I'm more focused on, because it doesn't take into consideration the metaverse jump up conversation that we had, but more so reflective on what's actually going on right now. I mean, project wise, we're not going to cover that today, but of course things are always going on with Enjin. The project's still phenomenal, but the price is just indicated purely really from things that happen like leverages and things like that, not necessarily on Enjin, but across the board, especially in Bitcoin, really dictates a lot of market movements. And we just have general anticipation of the world right now. I think confidence is relatively low. I think there's a bit of uncertainty as to what's going on with different countries and stuff. People are being cautious with money. So there's loads of different reasons why this is happening. And of course, just the general momentum downwards always will have an influx of people going, actually, I think this is coming down and down. And that's when then you eventually see the big players come in and buy it all up. I'm not a big player, but I'm certainly buying it up, that's for sure, because I think this is a phenomenal opportunity. But like I said, I'm looking very excitingly at potential lower regions. We're not always about things going up all the time. There is always opportunity, especially even on the loop down. And if it's one of those projects that you always thought, what on earth are all these flags coming in? I have no idea what happened there. If you're one of those that perhaps missed out on the opportunity of Enjin, this is not financial advice obviously, but these could be certain areas. I do think we're having a good run. Hopefully if the bull run kicks in this year, we're going to have a good run upwards, and I do think Enjin could still get towards that $10 mark or beyond if we do so. Particularly if you think about it, we're actually in a very positive position because we're on higher lows than we ever were before, and we have seen a good influx from these low regions of $1 to $4. So if we're sitting around $2.5 already at the moment, and we see an influx similarly, that could be what takes us to $7 to $10. So I think that's still achievable. But for right now, based on the indicators, based on the information I've got in front of me, I've also been buying right now, as I've already told you, but I'm anticipating potential areas lower than this as well. And then let's quickly have a look at EFI, which is of course very heavily attached with Enjin, being the blockchain mechanism behind a lot of the gaming aspects and NFTs. If EFI kicks in. Here we go on the OKEX platform here. I might try and find a new platform for that one eventually, but this is what we got right now. So very interestingly, similar to Enjin in terms of the support mechanism areas, hitting the lower regions that we had way before. So we obviously had the launch date, kicked back down as anticipated. Profits were obviously taken, and then people jump back in, and then we've had the influx down. We've had the metaverse conversation. Here we go once again, November. Bit of a drop down, profit taken up again because Enjin is powerful. The conversation and narrative around NFTs and gaming is huge at this point in time. Everyone's jumping in, not knowing what's going on half the time, as well as gamers and things going, oh my God, I've got to get involved. And then we have the tail down because a lot of people are like, hang on a minute, this isn't actually doing anything anymore. And then the conversation stops and removes itself from mainstream media, etc. And that's why we have a bit of a tail down. So we've had that. EFI is obviously battling as well with the auction aspect of the parachains on the Polkadot system for a couple of months now, and that has obviously had an influx of people staking DOT to try and get the EFI up on the launch pads and being auctioned to win those spaces. But it hasn't really had a gigantic effect, to be honest, in my opinion, on the price, to be honest, which I was a bit surprised at. But I think as time goes by, EFI will still have a very valuable perspective towards Enjin and towards the gaming sphere and NFTs in general moving forward. So I think these are great bargain prices anyway. But what I don't want to see, obviously, is us dropping off a cliff where we see this being a really higher region and we drop down maybe lower here somewhere or something like 5 cents or whatever, because it's going to look a bit chaotic. But these things can happen. But right now, there's real good stability because we had a lot of drop points down to this sort of 74, 75 cents in the past. We had the tail up, big price discovery modes beyond this sort of market here at 189. Didn't last long, dragged back, pushed up against it, and we hit higher regions. Couldn't quite get to these higher levels of like 258 fib retracement levels. We dragged ourselves back, aiming more towards this area again at 188. Failed that, and we're back to where we are, as you can see right now. So at the moment, I have been holding EFI for a while. I've been buying it in the last 48 hours because I very much like this stabilized line and the line up in the data points previously. I don't have anything below that right now. I could be cheeky and maybe put in a lower region based on the introduction price aspect, or perhaps 70 cents. And in fact, I'll draw that now, and I'll probably do a USDT order maybe around a top end level. To be fair, I've already had that today anyway, but I might put another one at 0.76 or 76 cents, and I might even put one just under this lower fib retracement level, or bang on it, maybe just over 70 cents. So I'm going to put 171. I might do it at 69, but we'll see. So there's the areas that I'm going to put in 2 additional orders for EFI. Again, not saying the project is bad, it's just the momentum of the market at the moment. But what I would anticipate and love to see as well is real traction around this area to give full-on foundation for when we do swing back up. A lot of investment happening in right now. I mean, the volumes aren't gigantic compared to a lot of projects out there, but I think relatively speaking, what I quite like is the candles are thinning. And this means that we're very much in a stabilization area. No one knows quite what's going on. So there's not an influx of high levels in. There's not an influx of high levels out. And that's why as well on the histogram, we're not seeing a big wave like this we did previously. It's very much just kicking out the last bits. Maybe, just maybe bottoming out before we have a final confirmation this is where we need to be and switch over. So we're going to get that confirmation perhaps in the next few days and certainly into next week. I'm really interested to see where we move with that. But on the RSIs, 34, 40 beautiful positions on the 14 and the 28 day for me personally, and especially that 90 day hitting 42. That's why I think these lower regions might be of interest to buy, because if that 90 does hit around that 40 mark, that's where I think that's where the chart would move to. But significantly on that 28 day mark as well on that month is a very good beauty spot for me, as I've mentioned in many videos before, and especially this one as well with Enjin. It's a similar principle. 40 is a good marker for me for when trades start moving upwards to take DCA positions, dollar cost averaging, sell off positions moving forward. but also on the way down, it concludes to me that the risk level is reducing significantly. Yes, that 14-day might come down possibly to 32, maybe even lower, 27, 28, but I still think that's where it could probably bottom out, perhaps, just perhaps, again at that sort of 7.5 or 70 cent mark again. But like I said, what's really positive, last 2-3 days, nailing around that 80 cent mark. If we can get stability there, confirmation there, we could be in for a good run for Efinity in the near future. So let's keep an eye on that. I'm hoping it doesn't come any lower than these, because that'd be quite disappointing for the project in terms of investment perspective. But the stability is there, key, and it's clear that people are pushing in influx of investment enough to keep it afloat. So that's kind of a wrap up for those two guys. That's where I'm putting my positions in. Let us know what you're doing in the comments below on both ENJ or EFI, or both if you're holding both. But guys, we will cover this in a few days time. I'm really interested to see how this one plays out, because it's a nice, it's not like a steep drop, is it? It's a nice gradual one, and I'm just wondering if we'll get a nice U shape coming in eventually in the few days, or certainly the next week or two. So until that next video, thanks for watching this one, guys, and we will see you indeed in the next awesome EFI Enjin update video. Take care, guys. Bye bye.